Everyone. Some of you that have had IBT before may feel like you're having flashbacks seeing Alex back on an IBT meeting. You're just lucky today. You get both of us. Woohoo. This is not an operational meeting. This is one of the professional development sessions that we're doing on employer engagement. So if you think that you're going to hear all about reports and fabulous operational meeting details, you're a month early. It's in July. Actually, it's 2 months early. It's in July. This is really all about employer engagement. That was a request that we had from several programs that they wanted to hear more about employer engagement. And so we've done a little bit of digging on our own, and we have a program that is going to be joining us, hopefully shortly, that can talk through some of what they do with employer engagement. That is an IBT grantee. But employer engagement, we also know, is a very broad topic. So hopefully we'll be able to help some of you get some of the information that you need, but if not, you're welcome to reach out to either Alex or myself and say, hey, what about this? Can you explain more with that? Where do I find a resource? That sort of thing. We do want participation. So if you've got questions, you can put those in the chat, or as Brittany said, you can unmute and ask them as we go through. Alex and I are both teachers, so it doesn't bother us if you're like, hey, wait, hold on, I have a question about that. Interrupt us. It's
We're
fine.
used to it, yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. So we will go ahead and get started. I think Alex is going to do the screen sharing.
Yes.
I think that's what we worked out, but we'll see if technology agrees with us or not. That's always the fun piece.
We're cross our fingers here. There we go.
Right.
And
I can see the entire screen, so there you go.
entire screen. Let me.
You may have to switch screens.
Yeah, let me try it.
Yeah. See, I said it was going to be technology was going to see if it was going to let us happen or not.
All right, let's try this. Is it still the full screen? Or is it just
It's just the slide deck.
Okay, so now it's over here on.
I can only see one IBT professional development session employer engagement screen.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, so we are good to go. So yeah, like Angela mentioned, I recognize some faces on here. I used to work with the IBT grant pretty closely. So it's good to be back to see everybody here with the IBT grant. But my name's Alex Weidenhammer. I'm the director for workforce training. Angela reached out to me today to kind of go over some global level concepts when it comes to employer engagement, because on my side of the house, I work in the non-credit space. So a lot of that deals with trainings that colleges conduct that aren't connected to credit bearing courses, but result in industry recognized credentials. And also colleges provide customized service trainings to employers. So with the non-credit side of the house, working with employers and engaging with them is the name of the game. So the first thing I kind of wanted to go over here was just like the large concept, why it's important to engage with employers. And then, as you can see here on the slide, what are their pain points? So it's probably a term that you've heard time and time again. What are the pain points that employers are experiencing? And if you look at the state of the world, the economies, you can see that there's probably a lot of pain points that employers are dealing with on a daily basis. But as educational providers, there's only so much that we can do. We can't, fix all the supply chains and, find more money magically for them to finance their operations. But we can help out with one key thing, which is training. So when it comes to employers, they can define their pain points in a few different ways. And this kind of just depends on who you're talking with, which company, which representative of that company. So they can put it in terms of business functions. So to an employer, when they are looking at a pain point when it comes to staffing, they may not look at necessarily the specific job title, but a core function within their company that they are trying to address. So for instance, maybe they're having issues with warehousing, or there's a specific aspect of nursing or precision machining, welding, or maybe customer service, like the examples I have there on the slide. So like a function that is fulfilled within their company that they need help with. Right. And then additionally, they can also address it through specific job titles. So this is kind of the more on the nose sort of method. So they can say, well, I'm really having a hard time finding reliable and well-trained mechanists or registered nurses. So those are a few ways that pain points can be defined when it comes to engaging with an employer. And then here on the bottom portion of the slide is a way that these pain points can manifest, right? So To begin, unfilled job openings. Employers are having a hard time maybe filling a critical opening at their company that might be leading to missed time frames or maybe resulting in them not being able to meet certain business needs. So finding qualified and skilled employees for these positions is, of the utmost importance. Onboarding, training, and upgrading costs. So once again, it's expensive to hire people. I can't remember exactly how much, depending on the company, it can cost thousands and thousands of dollars just to get a new employee on with a company. So one thing that employers are really trying to make sure that they're doing is hiring qualified candidates for the positions that will stay. So then once again, there's that return on investment. They're investing in that new employee, therefore they're getting their, the money back in a way. And then also career advancement, turnover, and retention. Once again, just kind of the main theme is that employees are having a hard time finding talent and retaining that talent. And that could be due to the fact that maybe there aren't many career advancement opportunities within their company. So what they want to do is they want to upskill their current workforce to fill in maybe those critical gaps. Because once again, you could have a worker who is entry level, say as a mechanist, right? And they're kind of working with one machine, but you see potential in them and you want to train them for maybe a managerial position. Well, how exactly would they do that? So that's where they could turn to educational providers to provide that supplemental training to upskill their current workforce to fill those critical in demand needs. So like I said, pain points, there's a wide spectrum of them that employers are dealing with on a daily basis. But once again, we as educational providers, we can really help out and provide the remedy to helping with their workforce needs, right? And so I'm going to pass it off to Angela here to kind of go over some of the benefits of why it's good to engage with employers. So, Angela.
Sure. Thanks, Alex. And as we all know on the IBT grant, it's a very broad-based grant. And so some of you are working directly with students, some of you are working directly with employers, some of you are working with a combination of the two. And so sometimes it's a mixture of, wait, why should I be engaged with an employer? Why should I not? How do I do that? And what does that all look like? Well, there's benefits for multiple groups of people when the employer is engaged. Some of the ones for students specifically, and again, because I've been a teacher for so long, the people I serve are called students. Some of you refer to them as clients. There's all number of things, but this is the population that you're serving with this grant. How are they benefiting from employer engagement? They can get better ideas of career readiness because they think they know what a machinist does, but until they actually can see it or they hear about it, then they go, oh, that's not what I thought it was. I need to try this over here. I need to go a different route. Skill development. What do I need to be able to do for this particular job? Increased awareness of career options. Many of our students, well, we all don't know what we don't know. And if students have only been exposed to CNA, they have no idea that another option is phlebotomy or EKG technician or EMT or registered nurse. They just know CNA. And so exploring those other options and what other pieces are out there and available can be helpful for students. One of the things Alex mentioned was moving up in the company, and that's social mobility. That just helps them become better invested in the community and in the economy that they're working in. And then enhanced understanding of the workplace. Again, they don't know what they don't know. My 18-year-old daughter has no idea what working a 40-hour-a-week job is because she never has. Now, she's done pizza delivery. She's worked at a couple of entertainment parks, and she's done some food stand work, but it's kind of been a hit and miss part-time kind of thing. So until she can actually talk to an employer that says, this is what 40 hours looks like, and you have to show up at this time, and you can't leave until this time, and you have a lunch that's this long and at this time period, or, whatever you want to take it. Those are all pieces that students don't know until someone tells them. And it's one thing to hear instructor Alex say, well, this is what this looks like. It's a whole nother thing to have employer Alex walk in and go, this is what I'm looking for in an applicant, in an employee. It just means a little bit more. So those are some benefits for students, but there's also benefits for the employers that can be engaged. On the next slide, please. access to a diverse talent pool. Again, as Alex said, sometimes the pain point for his employers is they can't get qualified applicants. If we're doing training that gets them the qualifications, the certifications, the skill base that they need, then it's going to help the employer be able to hire qualified people and potentially keep them. It helps employers understand educational institutions. Employers and schools are not the same, do not always function the same. And so helping them understand why there's a process maybe that you can't just dump somebody in and say, oh, good luck, you'll figure it out. You need some training and some established goalposts built in. So when they do get there, they're like, oh, this is why I need to do it this way. Employers can help shape curriculum and training. They can be part of advisory committees and say, and a lot of things are changing right now, particularly I'm thinking technology related, whether it's IT or it's in manufacturing. When I was younger and I thought of factories, I thought of those old, dark, dingy, dirty floors and places that you walked out and you were just like, ugh. But now they're all spotless floors and they're all clean machines. And you need different training for those pieces. And so those employers can work with educational partners to help figure out what skills need to be taught and what training is needed. Just building relationships in general, helping collaborate and put pieces together and help students have a better step forward on their next goal. Community and economic growth. As I said, if you're able to promote people up and they stay in the community, again, it builds community and economic growth therein because they're going to spend their money at the local Walmart. They're going to buy a car at the local dealership. They're going to be spending that money locally, putting kids in school locally. And so that economy just stays and grows. And then recruiting retention, like Alex mentioned, that return on investment for employers, it's expensive to hire and hope they stay past 6 months because oftentimes if there's either no training and they leave and you got to start the whole process over, or there is training involved, but now you're paying another person to do the training. So now you've got two salaries invested in the same amount of time. And it's like, we need to be able to keep people, where if more of that can be done on the employer, on the educational side, there's always going to need to be internal training that happens because the way McDonald's does it is going to be different than the way Burger King does it just because of policy. But there's some of those initial skills can be taught externally at an educational institution to keep them going and staying where they are. So those are some benefits for employers to be engaged as well. And so when programs are going out and talking to employers, yes, you want to sell your benefits, but you also want to make it valuable to the employer. Why is this going to be helpful to them? So think about what's going to be helpful to them. Do they need that diverse talent pool? Can they help you make sure your students have the right skills by helping build the curriculum or the training? You're going to cut down on some of their recruitment costs, hopefully, and retention. So you can help them with some of those pain points Alex was mentioning. And you've got to make sure that they understand that you can be a benefit to them as much as they are a benefit to you. So a couple of tips that I've heard from various programs when they're working with employers. One, you want to speak their language, not just yours. I worked with an individual who was in the manufacturing field, and he said when programs from particularly colleges would walk in and start talking about the pedagogy of the program and the methodology of the coursework, he tuned out. He was like, I don't know what pedagogy is. I don't know what methodology is, and I have no idea why it applies to me. Now we can explain that, but this is where you've got to speak their language. That you've got to be able to explain it to them, because if they sign off at the beginning, you're done. You're not making it any further. You've got to be able to make sure they're understanding the words that you're using. And I'm not saying that manufacturers are stupid. They're not. They're highly intelligent. They just use a different set of language. So number two, explain how you can help solve their problem. That's kind of what I mentioned earlier. If they're having recruitment issues, how can you help with that? Retention issues, we can help with this. Training, you need higher level training. Well, we can adjust our curriculum and add another 2 weeks or another 2 days, or we can add this credential in if that's something that you need help with. Maybe all of your students are currently struggling with math. I have a brilliant math teacher that somehow I don't understand math, but he makes it totally clear for all of the students. We'll add a section of math into the curriculum so they're more prepared when they get to you to do the math that you need them to do, not just a worksheet of multiplication tables. Describe, like I said, how they can help you or your program or your students. Make it a value to them. Because again, if it's not a value to them, if they don't see the purpose behind it, they're not going to continue. They're not going to answer. They're not going to stick with this. They have to see a benefit to them as well. Do your homework before you arrive. So that kind of goes back to that number one about speaking their language. Look at their website. See how many job postings they have. What's in their job posting? Are they hiring for machinists, or are they hiring for forklift drivers, or are they hiring for front end office support? You've got to make sure you're, again, speaking to what they need. So do your homework. Maybe how big is the company? How small? Know if you're talking to a small employer that has 6 employees, or if you're talking to a huge employer that has 20,000 employees. That's going to make a difference for them as well, just with numbers. So do some homework on the company before you show up for the first meeting. And maybe as you continue to do more meetings, continue to do homework. This isn't a one and done kind of conversation usually. Try to ask open-ended questions, not just yes/no questions. If you've ever worked with a teenager, how was school today? Fine. Great. That doesn't tell me anything about what you need my help with, what I can't, I don't know what that means. So asking some of those open-ended questions will get the conversation going and started, and will also help continue the conversation. If you ask the question, do you have any other answers? Do you have any other questions for me? And the answer is no, the conversation's over. They're done. They don't have any questions. But if you make a statement, something like, if you come up with any questions next week or later today, or you're talking to someone else, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to share any more information I can give you. You haven't ended it. You've continued that conversation. So asking those open-ended questions, keeping the conversation moving more than with a nope, is helpful. Now, you also have to think about those things ahead of time and plan them. It's hard to do that on the fly while you're sitting there. So that's why we're trying to give you some of these tips ahead of time so you can think through some of this. Number 6 says, take any sort of brochure that has data that you can leave with them. Whether it's a flyer, a brochure, a postcard, anything that's got some information that they can have that you can leave, because then they're going to come back, it's going to lay on their desk, or they're going to stick it on their wall, or they're going to put it on a refrigerator, whatever they do, and they're going to come back and go, you know what, I need to get a hold of Theodora again. I had that conversation and I wasn't ready then, but I'm ready now, so I need to get a hold of her. You know what, when I was talking to Alex, he said he could help me with retention. I didn't have a retention problem. I couldn't get anybody hired. I can't keep them if I can't get them hired. But now that I got them hired, maybe I need to go back and have that conversation with Alex now about retention. So leaving them with something that's going to catch their eye, make them remember you, is helpful. A business card is a basic, it can suffice. But again, we all like pretty colors and nice graphs and data and numbers. So if you have something, take it and leave it. If not, that's okay too. But something that's going to remind them in the future that you're still an option, that they can still come back to you with something, possibly. And maybe it's not exactly what you can do, but you can figure out a way around it. The last one is set up a timeline for the next step before you leave. So don't just leave and say, oh yeah, we'll talk in 2 weeks. Okay, who's calling who? Who's emailing who? Are you coming back? Are they coming to you? What does we'll talk in 2 weeks mean? I'll give you a phone call on the 12th and we'll see where you're at that point. Why don't you get through your recruitment fair that you're having on the 26th? Call me on the 28th and let me know how your numbers are going. If you set a specific date and time, some step that one or the other of you have to do, it's going to keep that conversation going. Again, it's that thinking ahead of not just an open-ended, well, get a hold of me when you have time. Now, they may not call you in 2 weeks. It happens, But you can put it on your calendar that says, oh, Alex was going to call me on the 28th after the career fair. I'm going to put on my calendar on the 30th that if I haven't heard from him yet, I'm going to call him and reach out and say, hey, I know you had a career fair, haven't heard anything. I'm sure you've been busy with all of your fabulous applicants. Is there anything I can help you with? But again, it's that set a time, make that next piece real, not just, oh, at some point. Now, some employers you're going to have to meet with 5 or 6, 8, 10 times before they say, pull the plug, pull the trigger, and go, yeah, let's do something. Some of them are going to jump right on board, but you just have to have patience because it's not a no, it's just a not yet. So you may have to wait for them to be ready to do it, but if you keep putting your name in front of them, you mail them a new flyer. Hey, we updated some of our paperwork. I wanted to share some of our return on investment data that we've got. I thought it would be important for you to see how we're doing our new manufacturing program, whatever it looks like. Hey, we're having a career fair in 2 weeks. Would you be willing to come and have a table? Again, just getting back in front of them again are helpful tips. I feel like I've covered a lot of information. Questions? Thoughts? Are you all going to be very quiet today? Hopefully not. All right. If there's something that you're typing furiously into the chat, that's great. I will take a look at that. But at this point, I think I'm going to turn it over to Theodora and Yvonne and let them introduce themselves and why we've invited them. They are a grantee. I'll start this off. They're with Instituto del Progreso, and they are an IBT grantee. They've had the grant, I don't even know how many years because this is the first year I've really fully done it. So I think 2 or 3, but maybe longer. But we wanted to invite them because they do a lot of employer engagement. And so we know sometimes it's more beneficial to hear the boots on the ground people. I mean, I can give you tips and suggestions from other programs, but it's kind of nice to have real people that you're like, but wait a minute, how did this work? Wait, go over that again. Say that one more time. So that's why we invited these ladies to join us to talk about what they do. So, Yvonne, Theodora.
Well, first of all, thank you, Angela, for inviting us, and Alex. I think both of you gave really helpful presentations, and so we're really honored to share our story. I want to say that we have a nursing program. We actually have two programs. One is a certificate program, a basic nursing assistant training program, which leads to certification as a certified nursing assistant. This is the first rung of the nursing career ladder. And then we have one degree program, which offers an associate degree in nursing program. So it's a 2-year program where students can take, the NCLEX exam. And if they pass that NCLEX, which almost all of our students have on their first try, then they become registered nurses. So those are the two programs we have. And so I think we're speaking from our experience. And so our tips and our examples of how we have tried to nurture good relationships with our potential employers, and everything has everything to do with nursing. So we're not suggesting that this is one size fits all. Our story has been beneficial, I think, for other comparable programs, and we have been very fortunate to have this IBT grant, I believe, for 4 years, and that has certainly helped us provide work-based experiences, which are clinicals, that have, from most of our grants, been able to fund, sort of provide some token stipends for this type of work-based learning. But also the IBT grant has helped us tremendously with having the types of supportive services that are so needed, because our mission is very much aligned with the larger mission of Instituto del Progreso Latino, which is to help particularly underserved communities access nursing education. So we have we are serving mainly non-traditional students who who are older, perhaps students who are single parents, people who have really fought many obstacles in order to get into nursing college. So that's our population. And so I think that Dean Banks, our Associate Dean of Nursing, she's been instrumental. She serves as a wonderful role model, but because she has been in the field for so long and she has many experiences with healthcare institutions, I think it's because of her that our employer engagement has been so beneficial and rewarding. But just as you've talked about, I think it's like, what's in it for them, right? And you have to understand the pain points of your industry. And certainly for nursing, there is such an urgent demand, not only for RNs, but for our trainees, who become certified nursing assistants. So in some ways, we have to say that we have maybe more built-in incentives for employers to work with us because there's such a critical shortage of RNs and CNAs in the Chicago area. So we're blessed with that. But as Dean Banks will start to tell you, relationships take time, and you can't just like send out these formal inquiries like, oh, would you like to come in and be one of our potential employer prospects? And especially for us to ask for clinicals, which is this whole, and clinicals are a required part of the curriculum for both the BNA training program and the ADN. So, but still, as Dean Banks will tell you, it's actually, there's a competition because there's not enough clinicals for all different nursing schools in Illinois. And so, if you don't have something special, some maybe secret sauce that you can offer your employers to say, why should they go with you? Why should they select you? Why should they want to hire your graduates? Then you really have to make and cultivate those relationships, which I think Dean Banks has done so well. And so, Dean Banks, if I could ask you to say a few to provide the first part of the presentation. And yeah, I can't say enough about Dean Banks. She's been with us since 2019, and she's our Associate Dean of Nursing. And it's really because of her incredible dedication that we've been able to nurture such good relationships with our healthcare partners. So.
Hi, everyone. And Angela, I want to say you were spot on. Everything that you presented, and if anyone is interested in, developing or forming relationships with employer partners or clinical partners, if you take those slides and keep them in your hand, when you are doing the preliminary work, I tell you, it will help you tremendously. Speaks so richly to many of the things that happen inside of Instituto as we were preparing. And as Dr. Lau was stating, I came in 2019, but the relationship that we had with Mount Sinai actually started with one of the former associate deans of nursing. And because students at the school that she worked at previously were going to Mount Sinai for clinicals, she touch base with the education coordinator and asked, if Instituto students could come. Well, of course, he didn't know very much about Instituto. So, they had to share a bit of information and let him know what we were doing. During that time also, Diana Alpizar was our director of student academic affairs. And after that former dean left, she stepped in, had a couple of meetings face to face with that coordinator, and he granted permission not only for the BNA students, but for the ADN students to start coming. And hence an opportunity for me to meet him, because I was actually hired not as associate dean, but as one of the faculty. I was teaching clinicals. So of course, the education coordinator had to facilitate my orientation. I had that opportunity to speak with him one on one to get to know much more about Mount Sinai, and he also had an opportunity to learn much more about the ADN program. He'd already had that experience for a couple of years with the BNA students, but now the ADN students were coming to clinicals, and that's actually on our next slide. I forgot to ask to advance. So again, I was hired in.
I think so. Dean Banks, I think we lost you. How did that happen?
So this slide really kind of is the wording behind what she just was talking about, right? When she
Yes.
was hired, their nursing program, Diana Alpizar. I make
Yeah.
no promises that's correct.
Yeah.
And then she was hired in the clinicals.
Right.
Okay.
And just to mention that, so our ADN program started, our first class was launched in January of 2019, but our BNA program has been in existence since 2016. So once again, those clinicals that started, I think it started the same year. They started first for our BNA program, you know. And that's why later, when you see our employment placement statistics, it's no surprise that Mount Sinai has been our largest employer and strongest clinical partner out of all the different hospitals in the Chicago area. So just to let you know, they account for all of our placements in the last 3 years between BNA and ADN. Mount Sinai has accounted for 32% of all of our hires. So that's very significant. And I also think that it's no surprise that Mount Sinai would be our strongest clinical partner and largest employer of our graduates because our demographics are very similar, right? They are located about 10-15 minutes from us on the sort of I guess it calls near South Loop and west side of Chicago. So, and they handle mainly the surrounding communities, which are largely African American and Latino. So it's just, I think that that's also an important way of what you talked about, Angela, in your great slide about, we really have to communicate in the employer's language. So, if we're talking about having the same clients, the same patients, and the same student demographics, there's no surprise that many of our graduates, of course, aside from their clinical and their technical skills, they are largely bilingual and biculturally competent. So I think that's another motivation for them to understand that we have these graduates, but not only do they have their RN license and their CNA certification, but they could be tremendous assets to your population, right? Because they do literally speak the same language, and as well as frankly, I guess that's our value added. If you want to talk about, in an industry where I don't know if I always try to make people guess, but does anybody want to guess? Maybe you and Alex. Oh, you probably know. What is the percentage of Latino nurses in this country? And it's the same in this state and in the city. Alex, you should know this. This is like too easy for you.
I would say 10%.
Okay, just a little lower. It's 6%. So, but in a city like Chicago where we're 30% Latino, right? 6%, 30%. I mean, that's one of the reasons why during COVID, Latinos had the highest mortality, morbidity rates. Anyway, Dean Banks is back, so I'm sorry. I was just filling in for you.
So sorry, technology kicked me out. Nonetheless,
Sorry.
I want to kind of get through. I know we're on a time crunch. We can advance the slide. I'll just go through them quickly. Our relationship, of course, grew because now I had the relationship with the educational coordinator. And I do want to say that after we met, we pretty much exclusively hosted all of our clinicals at Mount Sinai, and that was for BNA and ADN. So, of course, our relationship continued to grow. You can move to the next slide. And at that particular time, we were into the pandemic, and it had always been my desire prior to the pandemic and, when I initially came on board to reestablish the advisory committee. I don't know the work that was done prior by the former associate deans, but having that inroad with the nursing coordinator at Sinai really helped tremendously. So virtually, believe it or not, it was only this particular coordinator and another person from the VA hospital online with me. But it gave Sinai an opportunity to really get to hear more about our programs, to look at all of those numbers and to find out about our mission, to see how our mission aligned with theirs and vice versa. And again, Angela, I had that opportunity to sell our benefits. And a beautiful relationship continued to grow with us and Mount Sinai, and providing educational space for us increased, and also providing employee pools for them increased. So as Yvonne was talking about the bilingual BNA and ADN students, their pool and their need for employees really grew. Again, they heard more about what we were doing, how we were educating our staff, had that opportunity to contribute, and they knew exactly what type of students they were getting, because now many of them from the BNA program were working at Sinai, and many of them were returning and being admitted into the ADN program. So we can move to the next slide. So the advisory committee really unlocked more opportunities. Not only did we have Mount Sinai at the table to talk about, employing our BNA and our ADN students, but we also had an opportunity for their HR staff to start participating in job readiness workshops. They came in, started doing mock interviews, as well as other providers or employer partners and clinical partners. This was also an opportunity for us to communicate frequently with the coordinator about clinical placements, immunization requirement changes, clinicals for our capstone, which was transitioning our ADN students to practice. And we also talked about ways we could expedite the hiring process. So many things happened as a result of building our relationships and hosting our advisory committee and inviting our employer partners to attend. So we can move on to the next slide. So again, with this opportunity, we were able to learn more about the hospitals, and the hospitals were able to learn more about our programs, our curriculums, and they allowed opportunities. It allowed opportunities for our partners to provide more input. St. Anthony was at the table, Advocate was at the table, and we had a relationship with Advocate prior to the pandemic, but that contact person that we had left and went to work and I think another division. So we no longer have that inroad. And I tell you, it pays to have a relationship by way of, someone knows someone, and that someone knows someone else. And that was what happened with us at St. Anthony. Our CEO actually knew the nurse executive and was able to encourage her to speak with her staff about meeting with us. And the relationship with St. Anthony really grew and really blossomed. But it wasn't until that one staff member came to the advisory committee and heard and saw the graphs and got a chance to really see what we were doing, that our relationship with St. Anthony really blossomed. And again, the door is opened again at Advocate because they need BNA students or CNAs. So I reached out and asked if we could come back, and do some clinicals there. And it has increased our relationship with them. Partnerships have flourished for both programs, and our students are getting hired. I can't believe how quickly our ADN students are getting hired. And again, there's such a shortage of nurses and shortage of bilingual, especially Spanish-speaking nurses. Cook County has been at the table, Misericordia at the table, and we're looking for our relationships to grow. We can move to the next slide. And I'm going to let Yvonne talk about our placement locations.
Oh, okay, so then, as I mentioned earlier, it's no surprise then that if you combine both our ADN and BNA placements, that Mount Sinai has been the largest employer. So 32% of our students have selected to go with Mount Sinai. And that's also, I'm sure, because of the good clinical experiences they've had there. And then our students have had a very good reputation there. And then the next one, no surprise, is also St. Anthony is 16%. So this accounts for both ADN and BNA. And then the others, the other third major employer of all our BNA and ADN graduates is Advocate at 11%. So then the next slide shows this broken down into ADN and placements only. And here there's a slight it's just a very small percentage difference, but Advocate has I guess risen to the top for hiring the most of our ADN folks at 18%. I must add that I do believe that some of the there was at least a time during, especially right after the pandemic, where these hospitals, not only were they offering a very competitive salary, but they were giving sign-up bonuses as well. So I think the sign-up bonuses may have also sweetened the deal for some of our graduates, but still, Mount Sinai was the second highest employer in terms of 15%, and then St. Anthony at 12%. And then for our BNA placements, that clearly shows the familiarity with Mount Sinai as being, the top employer. So here we have a whopping 32% of our BNA graduates chose to be at Mount Sinai. And I really think that, as Dean Banks talked about, it's really the whole familiarity with Mount Sinai, the fact that when we invite them to come and help our students with the whole job readiness workshops, that they have been very instrumental in also helping us with providing mock interviews. And then, of course, they know our students from, having their work-based participation there.
Yeah.
And then St. Anthony is a close second in terms of having 18% of our students be at St. Anthony, and then Advocate is third. And then I would like to say that there's a wider continuum of choices for BNAs. Many of our CNAs, of course, they are also hired by nursing homes, by long-term care facilities, and so the largest representation of them are sort of in this miscellaneous other category. So, it's no surprise that there's such a wider set of choices for BNAs. So that's at 39%. So I guess overall, we just wanted to share our story and of course, leave room for, I believe, some breakout sessions. But, I think that getting back to what you mentioned, Alex, I don't know if you remember this, but in our, when we tried to use nursing as a case study for a TPM, I think it was brought out that to replace an RN at a hospital, the pain point for employers is that it's equivalent to investing $84,000, to hire this whole process from training to onboarding and everything. So $84,000 is what it takes to replace an RN. So I think that it's really, to the employer's advantage if they have a known quantity, if you've developed these relationships where you've asked for their input in some sort of advisory capacity, it just gives you an edge, right, in terms of selling your graduates to that employer. And I think that the more you can do to almost encourage your potential employer to get to know you, to get to know why your graduates are so, they're not only competent, but they have the types of soft skills that also lead to a successful retention rate. I think that in the case of Mount Sinai and Instituto, as I said earlier, we have similar missions, we have similar demographics, and frankly, our pain points are the same, right? In terms of what we can really sort of invest in each other, right? And I think that's why it's so important to have to create a vehicle like an advisory committee, or maybe something that's more suited for your industry, but something where you have regular contact with your potential employers, and you can either attract new employers to invite them to be part of your advisory committee, or you can, really nurture those existing relationships and make them feel that it's a win-win for them. It's a win-win for them to get to know your graduates and to understand why, your training program is the best match for what they need, so I think that's open to any questions or anything, but thank you, Angela and Alex, for giving
Sure.
us an opportunity to share our
Thank
story.
you for all of your information.
Yes, thank you both.
Does anybody have any questions for them? There's nothing that's been typed into the chat. Is some of this new for some of you? Is this something that you can take and apply? Because to Yvonne's point, yes, everything that they do is based off of nursing. But again, as we said, whether you're doing manufacturing or hospitality or IT, some of these needs, they transfer.
Yes. And Angela, if I could, any opportunities that organizations have to get their students out there, if there are like volunteer opportunities, such as for us, it was health fairs. Our students got a chance to go over to the hospitals and participate in health fairs. That's another opportunity. And we always reminded them anytime that they connected with those hospitals, they were literally being interviewed for a job.
Excellent point.
Good morning.
Good morning,
A
Omar.
little late, but just wanted to ask, because I understand you received the IBT grant. Could you tell us like how you use the funds, how they help these students? Like, were there any particular support services you provided?
Yeah, so hi, Amar. I recognize you. Thank you for your question. So yeah, we've had our IBT grant for several years, and we've used the grant for different well, we've prioritized the grant for different purposes. So, but supportive services is of course the main one. I think for a couple of years, up until this year, actually, we did provide through the grant stipends, right, to incentivize participation and also to ensure that, I mean, they would have to complete all the program requirements or the course requirements before they got the stipends. And and the stipends we said was clearly for participation in work-based learning. So since our clinicals were a natural for that, we decided to try that. Um, I think this is the first year that we decided that actually, providing stipends or not, we are fortunate that we have the, we have the enrollments, and so that wouldn't incentivize enrollment as much as it would certainly help our students with some basic needs. But instead of doing it that way, we decided that frankly, we would funnel the money more in terms of all the things that were definitely required, like even books. We pay for all our the textbooks for our BNA students, and now, for most of our ADN students. So, books is something that is increasingly a very large expense. So it's actually more than the stipend that we were able to give them. As well as supportive services includes even gas cards, because increasingly, while Instituto is very proud that we've been able to provide full tuition scholarships for every qualified student, so but still, even with that, given that many of our students are single parents, it's not enough. Tuition is not enough, and they need basic help. And some of them, unfortunately, even have to have part-time jobs, even though Dean Banks tells them she would prefer that you cannot work even a part-time job, at least not more than 10 hours a week, if you want to succeed in our rigorous nursing program. So we've decided to funnel supportive services in terms of providing, concrete help to the students. And so I guess, and frankly, because of our number of students, we really could not, we couldn't give more than a token stipend. Like it was never more than a few $100s. And since we're very explicit that you're not paid to be in the program, but you're paid for these clinicals. And so, that clinical time was what we factored in as suitable for a so-called stipend. But yeah, I think that, we feel that our student population, our target population has so many needs that the more supportive services we can provide them, then they're more likely to stay and have the ability to stay in our program.
And what are the other funding sources that your students use for completing their programs?
The other funding streams,
Yes, that like what other grants or
so we have been fortunate. We have been getting grants from private philanthropy at this point. Yeah, so because McCormick Foundation, Healthy Communities Foundation, Hoke Fry, and now we've gotten a grant from Genetech, this year. So, and we are also in the process of applying for Title IV. So we feel hopefully once we get Title IV, which will allow our students access to federal grants and loans, that will help us tremendously. Yeah.
okay, because when you said Title IV, you're referring to like federal student?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, because Title IV is also in the WEO world, it's like for disabilities. So I was wondering if
Okay. Yeah.
you tapped into that.
Yeah.
And then there's Title I, which provides WEOA funding for training. Have you used that? Or have
Yes.
are
Some of our students have qualified for WIOA funding for our BNA program. Yeah.
okay.
And I know I asked I think at the WIOA conference a few years ago, right? I came to your session and you were very helpful in letting me know about, yeah, how that process is. Mhm.
It's always great to hear that, there are more opportunities because, we're finding a lot of individuals, especially immigrants right now, that do not qualify for regular financial aid because they either have a degree already in another country or because of their status, so but fortunately WIOA can help them in many situations as long as they have a social security number and can legally work in the US, so it does open a few more opportunities.
Yeah.
And so that's the Title I, but Title IV has helped a lot of students here at Harbor College too, if they have disabilities. They have their own funding and supports.
Yeah. No, and we have, Omar, we have tried, my, we have some other colleagues who have made some inroads in going to the American Job Centers and, making presentations there, I think. But there are a few obstacles in terms of, yeah, just in terms of qualifying for WIOA, especially for our ADN program, because you need such a long lead time. And of course, you also have to go to other comparable institutions, right, to get that, whatever it's called, before you can successfully apply for WIOA for your students. But yeah, right. But we're hoping for Title IV under the Federal Student Aid Program to get that status. But unfortunately, due to the massive cuts at the Department of Education, we've been told that our application processing has been delayed, and yeah, so we are hopeful that they will be able to review our complete application soon. Mhm.
So we're running close on time. We
Okay.
had talked about, Alex, Yvonne, and I had talked about possibly doing a breakout room. That's obviously not going to happen at this point. Alex, can you go to the next slide? What we're going to have you do is potentially build a perfect pitch, an elevator pitch, a sales pitch, whatever you want to call it, for yourself on how to sell your program in 60 seconds. So this is what we were going to have you work on. However, you can still have the information. You still see the questions. You can still build your own perfect pitches and practice them at home in front of the mirror with a colleague. Call me up. You can do it on the phone, whatever. We'll help you out. But this is the other piece, because part of this that we haven't stated, because it's kind of a dirty word, is it's a sales job. When you're talking to an employer, it is a sales job. And so you have to be able to explain, what makes your program unique? What are your students bringing to the workplace? What kind of partnership are you looking for? What can they do to be part of that? And why should they care? If you can't give them a why they should care, they're not going to care and they're not going to agree to it. So those are some questions that we were going to have you guys work on and do, but we had great information instead. So hopefully you're okay with not doing the breakout rooms. Thank you very much to Instituto for being willing to come and share what you're doing in employer engagement. Thank you, Alex, for your part of all of this as well. And then, so that wraps up this month. Brittany is going to take this recording and save it. We'll get her the slide deck. She'll get it put on a website. And when that's all done, she'll send me the information and I will share it out with the listserv that says, here's the link with the slide deck and the recording. You can share the information with colleagues, whoever you want. You can go back and look at it again. You can pull up my slides. You can pull up Yvonne's slides and see how all of that goes. So there you go. We're at the end. Thank you very much, everyone.